Have you ever heard the phrase teach to the test? It almost sounds like a bad word. Basically, what happens, some point along the way while you're teaching, you realize that coming up is some kind of large assignment or a large test, something worth a lot of marks or points, and you eventually start really teaching towards that assignment or test in hopes that students do well on it. That's teaching to the test. What if I told you that I was the worst? I was the most guilty of this. I teach to the test all the time. But my test happens to be participation, progress, and performance. I'm constantly pushing my students towards more participation, more progress, and more performance. I'm constantly telling them how to do better and better and better at each of those three categories. And you might say, well, Brian, that's just understood. I mean, all teachers, those are goals for all teachers, and all teachers push towards those things. And if you're going to do really well on an assignment, then you would have had to participate a lot. You would have had to make a lot of progress, and that just sort of happens naturally. But something really different happens when you actually grade for participation and progress. And I didn't realize how powerful it was until I started teaching adults. Let me show you what I mean.
Okay, so because I've been teaching adults for the past 6 years, I've noticed that grades really start to matter. To the students, anyway. You can't really mess around with it. They feel like their grades are going to determine their future. And so the whole grading system needs to be legitimate. You can't have students making appeals over grades. So if I teach adults traditionally, but I grade non traditionally, it usually doesn't work. So teaching traditionally, I've got my unit and I'm marking my little assignments and giving them little 18s out of 20s and things like that. And then when it gets to the reporting period, I suddenly pull out something called the 3Ps and sort of spring it on them. There would be sort of a revolt. And so in fact, I have to teach non-traditionally and grade non-traditionally, and I have to talk about the grading that I'm doing all mixed in with the teaching. Like I said, I teach to the test. I'm constantly talking about this different way of grading while I'm actually teaching. And what's most important, especially for adults, is the grading has to make sense. They have to be able to understand it. And in fact, my students are actually doing it. And so it really needs to make sense to them in order to work for adults. Let me show you an example in a course that I'm just in the process of building. I'm not even finished it yet. Okay, here's a course that I'm currently building, and it has a strong online presence, and it's for chefs, and it's all about how chefs use technology. And so, like I said, I'm not done, but you can see over on the right, I'm going to have my students making a basic website, because that's what many chefs need to do. And so I have the 3Ps embedded right in that concept. And so I'm talking about how to participate in this building of a website, how to make progress while you're building a website, and then how to perform well when it comes to finishing off your website. And I'm not done the spreadsheets part or the devices, but for file management, I have it built right in. They've got local file management participation, online file management participation, and then they've got progress based around file management. And then they've got local file management performance and online file management performance. So these concepts are built right into the course, and they will be built in every single aspect of the course. Okay, so as you can see, I'm talking about participation. In fact, I'm teaching them ways to participate more and more and more, and we're monitoring it, we're tracking it, we're gathering evidence for it. In fact, students start to grade for their participation right away within week 1 and 2. And so everybody's very much aware of how well they're participating in the course. And so participation is not based on a feeling, there's evidence for it. And when it comes to actually grading for participation as adults, there can't be anything wishy-washy about it. They have to know how to ace participation because they think their futures depend on it. And so it has to be very, very clear for them. Same thing with progress. It's actually rare for someone to grade for progress. That's learning. To actually give grades for learning. So again, we have to talk about it, and I actually have to change the way I teach so that progress can become a reality, so that we can make sure progress is being made, so that they can actually earn grades for progress. And this is where the big difference is between traditional ways of teaching and using the 3Ps. Usually, traditionally, you're up in front of the class, you're gathering your assignments, and you're handing out the grades. But if you are grading for progress, you actually have to leave the front of the classroom, start working one-on-one, finding out what they don't know, making sure that they are making progress, look for it, track it, make sure you see small improvements in those essential tasks, And then eventually you're going to grade for it. And it has to be a solid process so that adults don't appeal it. It has to actually be based on evidence. But when it comes right down to it, I'm a mastermind, because as we pour energy into participation and pour energy into progress, it drives the performance through the roof, which is what I wanted in the first place, is excellent performance on my essential tasks. I want you to look at this equation. I've probably showed it to you before, but it's so very powerful. Participation plus progress equals the quality performance we've always wanted as teachers. And this is a very powerful, and it's very encouraging for students. If I participate hard, if I make progress, I will do good in my performance. So it's powerful and it's encouraging. Look at the 2 P's out front. Look at the hard work that goes into those. My students have to participate. They have to get better. It's part of the grading process. There's hard work involved there. When a course is only based on performance, sometimes I traditionally see a lot of cramming, or find the trick to the performance, or cheat on that performance because I only have 6 or 7 of these little tests or assignments to do. I'm going to try and do that. And it doesn't work in this situation. The grades come from this hard work, participation and progress, and that's going to help with my performance. The other thing about it is, this is incredibly motivating, because students know that if I try hard, I will earn grades. If I get better, I will earn grades. Grades are tied to this hard work, and that makes sense in the world. If I work hard, if I'm motivated, I should get value out of it. And that's where I get these grades. And of course I get grades also for quality performance, but it's such a powerful equation. That is why I teach to the test. This is my test, and I teach to it all the time, and it works really well. Thanks for listening. More to come.